I'm not in the mood yet. And I'm like, all right, this thing's coming.
TNA is a really good metaphor for all of this.
This is the Air Horn Podcast, where we slow down and talk about going fast. It's another mountain biking podcast, where we sometimes answer questions you ask. You can listen at 1.25 speed. You can listen in any order you please. It might be the worst, it could be the best, but it can't be a raw vlog, cause we gotta get it's the Air Horn Podcast.
Hey, welcome everybody to the Air Horn Podcast with Tony from the Outsider MTB channel. This is the Air Horn channel, and the Air Horn podcasts are a series on the Air Horn channel. These are the interview series. I also do the raw vlogs, which is just me. And the Air Horn channel is a companion channel to my main MTB ALAN channel, which if you just click that corner link up there, you can go over to that. And if you don't already know Tony from the Outsider MTB channel, you should definitely check him out. Great stuff. Friend of Alan and Alan's people, and also friend of the channel. And now it's been a little bit, so now we'll put his link up in the corner so you can go check out his stuff, and also put it in the description too. Yeah.
Ooh, description.
In the description. So, Tony, there's probably a few people who don't know who you are, one or two in Southern California. How would you describe yourself and your channel?
I would say the channel was started, and the theme is based around helping people navigate trails through trail guides. That's the premise of the channel. And also with that, as the trail started getting going and more people came on board, it's turned into more of like a skill progression. There's ride-alongs and just a little bit of everything. But the main theme is like navigation and this guy who's kind of an idiot on the trail sometimes, and
it's kind of turning into life navigation, I think.
Yes, it is actually. It's like you get to follow around in my crazy life, which is pretty hectic right now, and we're riding bikes together. Basically, it's all over the place. Basically,
let's see here. So. A lot of you who saw the previous episodes with Tony really wanted to have him come back. And so we've got him back. And we're going to, real quick, just a little bit more of a shout out for you. Let me see here. Tony's Instagram. So if you haven't checked out Tony's Instagram, there's his Instagram. He recently didn't ask me anything. I totally forgot to ask you anything. I didn't.
Oh, that's okay.
Anything.
I was a bit sad.
I was watching it and I was like, wait, I didn't ask anything. And your most recent video was like pretty dang sweet, man.
Oh, thank you.
I really dug that bonus video this week.
I appreciate that. That came out this morning. So this comes out tomorrow. This comes out tomorrow, like in 12 hours. Oh, sweet. Yeah. Yeah, this will come out soon. So check that out if you haven't already checked his stuff out. So we should probably get to what we're going to talk about today. And just so you know, if this is your first Air Horn podcast episode, normally when I'm interviewing somebody, we do a few things where we just kind of get to know them. If you want to see Tony's one of that, there's a couple episodes back. Maybe I'll put a corner link up there. So we're not going to do that today because we just want to get to some of our subject matter. And we're going to talk about two things. One thing we're going to talk about is that just general feeling of unpreparedness and nerves when you're thinking about hitting a feature that you've never hit before or riding trails that you haven't hit before. And we're also going to answer a question from Paul. Was it Paul Dominick? I've totally lost the page. I got crazy. We're going to answer a question about buying bikes. So if you, hopefully, Paul, is it Paul? Yes, Paul Dominick. Dominic? I said Dominique. Paul Dominick. If hopefully you're watching, because we're going to answer your question and hopefully it'll apply to everybody else about buying bikes. Mm-hmm. Wow. We get that question a lot though. Like that's a question from Paul, but we get that, you and me both, constantly, right? On Instagram and comments. So maybe this is going to be helpful for the lot.
Yeah. So being
unprepared.
Yes.
So
Always.
yeah, just never ready. So last time, Tony, you and I we were talking about a whole bunch of stuff, but at one point we talked about how there's times when you're just nervous, like you're thinking about doing something and it's just scary to you, and you just get I call them the Ghiblies. I get the Ghiblies.
Yep. So for me, we talked a little bit about this before we went on air, but basically for me, when I wake up in the morning and I'm thinking about going riding, I'm going to be on my bike in an hour and a half, and I'm going to be riding down this pretty gnarly trail, or there's a feature I want to do that I've never done. I wake up and I'm like, ugh. I almost have anxiety about it because the frame of mind I am when I wake up and how chill things are. And like normally when mornings start, you're not trying to huck yourself off a 5-foot drop or something. So thinking about that, like an hour and a half, I'm going to be doing that.
Yeah.
It's kind of not gnarly for me. And then, but what always happens though, and this is the way it goes, and I need to tell myself this more, I'm not good at it. Once the morning progresses and you do your things, you get a bite to eat, you drive there, you're slowly preparing mentally for what you're about to do. And eventually when you get to that thing, it doesn't feel as crazy as it does when you're like an hour and a half before. So for me, like it's almost I'm creating an anxiety for myself, an adrenaline rush when I don't have to,
Right.
like I'm doing it to myself and I'm fully aware. And I just felt like maybe you or like other people out there feel the same way sometimes when like you're not prepared. You don't have to.
And that feeling, like the thing is sometimes we're able to walk through that feeling because there's enough drive to get us to like break that seal. But that feeling can keep you from doing stuff that you probably would enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Because you get up and you're thinking there's kind of underlying anxiety, and then you want to run away from that, and you end up not doing it.
Yeah, dude, there's been times I'm sure that it's happened to me where how easy it is sometimes to talk yourself out of driving for an hour and a half and going on a full ride day. It's already hard to motivate sometimes to do it. Not that we don't love to do it, but there's just some days where it's like, I can do it tomorrow. And then the next day, you're like, I can do it tomorrow. But if you have those little things in your head where you're like, but I don't feel like doing that today, or I'm going to be doing that gnarly thing, it's easier to pull away from. But I really like when I talk to you about this, because you can go ahead and say what you do. Like, what do you suggest? You just have to do what? Like
exactly.
You're helpful with that. I've actually thought about what Alan says is like, well, all you have to do right now is get up and get out of bed. All you have to do is go and brush your teeth. Like whatever it is, like do these little things first just to get yourself going, and then you're on your way.
Like the first time you're going to go to a bike park, you've never been to a bike park before, or actually, even if you have, like I think about like the first time I'm going to go to Snow Summit when it opens, and I'm going to ride Miracle Mile or 10 Ply or some gnarly trail. And like you're saying, like when you wake up in the morning and you're still like, sleepy and you're thinking about that, of course there's a large discrepancy between where you're at right now and hucking yourself through a rock garden. And what I do is I just say, look, I actually don't have to do 10 ply. All I have to do is get out of bed. And then once I'm out of bed, all I have to do is go to the bathroom. And then I just have to do each one of those things. Eventually, all I have to do is pack the truck. All I have to do is drive to Big Bear, and so on and so forth, until eventually, like, you're there. And to me, I kind of apply that to just anything that I have resistance to doing, but I know that I would be better off doing. Like, I don't experience this anymore, but when I started training, like doing CrossFit, we were working out in somebody's garage, right? Kind of before like anybody really knew what CrossFit was. And we had to show up at the garage at like, I don't know, 5:30 in the morning, right? And it wasn't like a night. We weren't like in a gym. It was like it wasn't grungy, but it was like not a great place. It was cold. And like, I was like thinking like, I got to like go in and like lift heavy weights and put myself through a bunch of misery. And it was so hard to get out of bed to go do that.
Yeah. That sounds rough. Listening, I'm like, yeah, that one sounds.
Yeah. But the same thing, it was like, I don't have to, I just got to get out of bed.
Yeah.
And before I knew it, I was like done training and back home and showered, and I would feel great. And yeah.
Yeah, totally, man. I think of you, even when I'm doing sometimes I do solo rides, I'm like using that philosophy more and more. If I can I want to get that more into the routine, because it's so true. If you just get up and just move to the next step, then you're closer to that thing. But if you just become frozen and you're like, well, I don't want to feel like doing that right now.
Yeah.
You're never gonna wake up and want to do Miracle Mile as soon as your eyes open, right?
well, you and I won't. I mean, like
No,
Aaron Gwynn is like, oh, I'm gonna warm up on.
You could just throw his bet down and he'd just jump out of it.
No, but you said something before we started recording, which I thought was really cool. Like I think you got to kind of the heart of why this is so powerful and valuable in our lives. It's about being in the present.
Mm-hmm.
Being in the present and being like, if it's time to brush your teeth, that's what you're doing. You're not thinking about like down the road.
Yeah.
And
I'm really working on that.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I don't mean to cut you off. I'm just really working on that now in my life, where I'm at with not only mountain biking, but just like, I said in my last video, and we don't have to dwell on it. It's not that much of a negative. I'm now unemployed. There's stress. We are all in this crazy pandemic. I love mountain biking. I've got the channel to focus on right now. Like, I'm trying to be present in the days that we have right now, because we're in crazy times and everybody's going through them. So I'm really trying to focus on the philosophy of like, what you can't control is not something to worry about. And that's easier said than done, but it's true, right? Like, I can't control the things going on around me in my life. So why am I going to be obsessing about worrying about them? I can only deal with and do what I can do during my day to make my life better and more productive. So I'm trying to do that. But, it's always like this. I say that with a grain of salt. Like, being present is something you have to work on every day, almost every moment of the day, right? Because we just get lost in our thoughts thinking about 6 hours from now, 6 hours in the back. And this also goes along with the anxiety we're talking about with when I wake up and think about myself doing some gnarly thing 3 hours from then. If I'm present, I probably won't be so stressed about that. It just, once I get out there, every time I get out there to do a ride, I'm in that moment and hyped to do it, right? Like, I'm never like, and if I'm not, I won't do it. But it's just like a frame of mind, I guess. It's such a mental thing.
It's funny because, I sometimes find myself, I sometimes am laughing at myself because, I spend all this money and put in all this effort to do this thing called mountain biking. And a lot of the times my core goal for getting on the bike is to disappear. Not from society, but like literally like mentally disappear. There's moments like on a trail, and that's why I like full pulls, because it takes me a little bit to get to that point where I'm just 100% in the moment. I'm not thinking about the next turn, or I'm thinking about the turn I'm in now. I'm not thinking about 2 turns down the trail. I'm like so in the moment and just in that flow state. And it's funny that we'll build all this anxiety around getting into the flow state.
Yeah.
Ideally, like we would experience that, and we would try to like spread that out into the rest of our lives, right? So that we don't just get it in mountain biking. We use mountain biking as a way to kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? I was going to say fertilize it. That's not what I was. Incubate. It's a place to incubate the flow state, and then hopefully we can kind of expand that more out into the rest of our lives. No,
that's perfect. Actually, it reminded me of something we talked about earlier. Like, say, TNA isn't the gnarliest trail, but if you're just going for a regular weekday ride, it's got a lot of stuff in there. And I'll go on a Laguna ride and I'll do Lizard and I'll come over to TNA, and I'm not in the mood yet, and I'm like, all right, this thing's coming. But it's always like that. Right before you drop in, you're like, okay, let's go. And then as soon as you drop in, everything disappears. And this is no place you'd rather be is on that bike, on that trail, right? And then you're in that place that you sought out. And then every time it happens. But every time before that, I'm always like, that's kind of what we're talking about.
TNA is a really good metaphor for all of this. It's like a microcosm of the whole thing, because what are you thinking about when you think about TNA? You're thinking about that from that one section where there's like the roller on the left and the little chute on the right.
It's all a build up to that.
Yeah, but before that, like it's like
whatever.
cruisy.
It's just fine.
There's like there's a whole cruisy sections, and now there's all those new like slightly bermed turns. So like the majority of that trail is like a blue, pretty much.
Totally, until that like 3/4 zone. That's
but that's like all I'm thinking about.
Yeah. Now the whole time down, even like it's funny but like the cool thing about that trail though is that it's all blue, but you have like 5, 6, 7 minutes of warming up again to get into the groove, and then by the time you hit it, you're like ready, kind of. You're like, all right, let's keep this going. I'm like ready to push it up a notch, and then that's what that trail does. That's kind of why I like that trail so much. It's like my go-to. Is you could start at the beginning from like out of the car if you wanted to, and then by the bottom you're like, let's go.
Yeah, that's cool. So stay in the moment.
Yes. Stay in the moment,
and you only need to be prepared for what's in front of you.
To brush your teeth.
Yeah, to brush your teeth. Brush your teeth, dang it.
Yeah.
So do you want to jump into this question?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. So Paul Dominick says, with so many bike brands available hang on a second. Let's get rid of this. All right. I got to learn to do that more often. With so many bike brands available, either in stores or direct to consumer, what did you look for overall when making the decision on recently purchasing new bikes? So that's the specific question, but I wanted to open this up a little bit more to make it just generally more applicable to into like two parts. One part being like buying your first bike, which is one whole conversation, and then buying your next bike, which I think is like, again, a whole nother conversation again.
Totally. So
let's do a little history though. What was your first mountain bike?
If you really want to get specific, my first mountain bike was in Connecticut. It was a Giant Rain from 2011, 12, right before I moved to California. And I worked at a snowboard skate giant store in minimum wage, whatever. I was a shop guy. And the guy that I work with, he had been mountain biking for so many years. He used to be almost a pro, and we had rentals. So I just started mountain biking because I would take the rentals out and go with him, and that's kind of how I fell in love with it. And eventually, I just bought the rental for like an employee discount and had that for a couple of years. So it's kind of funny because I know where this conversation is going to go for me. Almost every bike I bought is on a discount.
Right.
So, and that
pays
me,
full price.
Yeah. Well, and I said this in my last video, that the questions I answer is like, there's so many things to consider in this process. And for me, the price has always been one, but I never wanted to sacrifice quality for that. I'm getting kind of ahead of myself because you asked me what my first bike was, but this led into that. A Giant Rain. And then
so my first bike was a Specialized Rockhopper.
Oh wow!
Don't know that hardtail 29er like XC bike.
You had a 29er. I don't even know what a Rockhopper is. It's a 29er.
Yeah, it's a hardtail. Yeah, I at least the one I had was a 29er.
Yeah.
And like built to throw you over the handlebars. That's kind of I was looking at pictures of it recently, and I was like, oh my god, like how did
I was just gonna say, I wish we had pictures of both of us, like the first year that we were riding.
I don't want to look them up. I don't want to look up. I'll see if I can. You have to send me a link to yours, but like
I'd have to dig them up because it was in Connecticut, but I'm sure it was like we just looked to us now silly.
Yeah, but well,
that's how it goes.
But I bought my bike through like I had a buddy who was like, has like the garage bike. He bought a bike and just stopped riding it. And I was fortunate in that like my buddy Matt knew enough about bikes, and I could like show him the bike and be like, hey, what do you think of this bike? And he could tell me like, yeah, that's a good bike. For a starter. So I think that really helped. But I think to kind of expand that out to how I think a person should go about buying their first bike. First off, if you're like the minority right? And you can, okay, I just found it. Sorry.
Yeah. Can you are you gonna put it up on the screen?
There you go.
Nice.
Can you see that?
Oh wow. Yeah, man. Well,
It's
it's a
little-
29er, so I feel like it's pretty recent, right? Like it's within a time frame.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, 2 rings up front.
Oh wow. I can't see it. It looks just tiny on my screen. 2 rings.
Sorry.
Yeah, I had the same.
Yeah, I
Not
was
the
gonna
same
try
bike,
to. I was gonna try to find. I have one of like the side shot, but like I can't find it now.
Yeah.
Anyway, point being, there's different ways to get your first bike, but I would suggest like not spend like, okay, so like I was gonna say, if you're in that minority and you just have $5,000 to $7,000 of discretionary funds to go buy, like, and you're gonna go just buy the super crazy awesome bike, fine, do it, have fun. But if you do that, think of it as an investment.
Yeah.
Put some, what is it called? I forgot what it's called. Invisiframe on it, or some sort of covering on it, because it's hard to know if you've actually bought the right bike, and within 6 months to a year, you might decide you need another bike. So if you're going to spend a whole bunch of money on a bike, make sure you take care of it, so that the resale value will be pretty decent. Right. So you can
keep the scratches to a minimum. And what's the other side of that coin is, if you don't want to spend $5,000, then you know what? Get a used bike. Look on Pink Bike or the used section, or get the aluminum. You know, I'm not going to advocate YT or Kenny, but like get the base model at something for a beginner, because if you're a beginner, you're not going to really need that $6,000 bike.
And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to say get a hardtail.
Yeah.
Some of it is like, yes, you're gonna learn more skill. You're gonna learn how to use your natural suspension, your body suspension, which is always going to be a fair bit more than any bike's going to offer you. Mm-hmm. That's great. The other practical aspect of that is like, if you don't know mountain bikes, you don't know how to treat a full suspension bike.
Right.
There's all the pivots, and plus there's a whole bunch of additional expenses that come with managing a full suspension bike.
Yeah. It's like a car, right? The more doohickeys in it, the more problems.
And it's easier to get a used hardtail that's gonna like be okay and not explode on you than if you buy like a full suspension bike.
It's kind of true.
You don't know.
I never really thought about this before, because I didn't go this route with the hardtail. But I would say if you do start with the hardtail and you are comfortable with that, once you move into a full suspension bike, you're going to have more skills than necessary almost for that plush feeling, because you already understand body suspension, because you've been taking the brunt of it, right? Like you're gonna get on that thing and you're gonna be ready. It's a good price point, right? A hardtail is always going to save you some money. That's a good point. I never thought about it like that, Alan.
Yeah.
Kudos.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I think will happen, one dynamic that'll play into this, is your buddies. Because I think you kind of got into it like on your own, right? You didn't have there wasn't like I think a lot of people get into it because they've got like a crew of buddies who go and ride.
Yeah, I just had a mentor, like one guy that I would go with. And I don't know if you had that too, but and then when I got to California, the bug had been planted, so I was on my own.
Yeah. I think if you're one of those people who's got all the buddies, they're of course going to be trying to sell you on their type of bike.
Yeah. The best bike ever.
You got to get like 180 mil of travel. You got to get this. You got to get that. I suggest don't listen. I mean, because you might not actually like mountain biking. I mean, I don't know.
That's where I really was going with this. That's why I said the other side of the coin is get something like this, because if you invest $5,000 and you're over it in a month, which you know what, it happens to more people than not. People aren't really ready sometimes for. And I say this with a grain of salt, and hey, the punishment that comes with starting a mountain bike. I'm with a guy right now that's a noob. He just started riding, and I'm doing a Fullerton loop with him, and he is almost dead at the end, because he just the climbing. It's the climbing a lot of the times that people aren't ready for. They just see the fun descents, and they don't see the other side of the ride where a lot of times you don't see in the videos, right? You climb for as much as more than you descend.
Oh yeah, always.
If
I had to pedal my Bronson, like from when I started, right? So I remember like I've been doing like the post office loop kind of more regularly. And I remember the first year of riding that, I was on that 29er hardtail, which was like, I don't know, 20 something pounds, like pretty dang light. And I would be dying, on the freaking pedals. And now I'm on a bike that's like 30 something pounds and I'm fine. But I think about like if I was on that bike back then and I didn't have the pedal fitness, man, that just would have been terrible.
Weight and everything. It's totally. And I think that's what happens. Like I think a lot of people that get into this activity, they aren't fully mentally prepared for what is going to come. Like you go, say I take somebody that just bought a brand new bike, they got a brand new $6,000 bike, and we go to the Willow parking lot. You got 40 minutes to get up to the top before any fun begins, right? And the first is going to be torture, and it's hot. There's no shade.
Yeah.
If you're willing to keep and persevere through that for a couple rides or a couple weeks, that gets much easier. And then you're in that sweet spot where, okay, let's just go for a ride, right? Because if you don't,
totally.
It really is a wake up call to like, shit, what am I still into?
I think the other thing, and I watched this happen where this like a person was with their crew of buddies, and I was just kind of adjacent to them, and this guy was like brand new. There was a freaking like kind of like a waterfall section, not as intense as like chutes, but along those lines. And his friends were literally like, "Hey man, he actually had a Trek remedy. He was like, "Hey man, you got a remedy. Like, just go." Just like go down there. You're like, your bike will do the work. And I was like, no.
The bike isn't driving him down. No, that's
so like I think that's like another built-in danger of getting like too much bike than you need out of the gate.
Yeah. And there's a little off topic, but I mentioned I've been bringing the guy on some rides he's brand new. There's some things that I've been riding and you've been riding, and I realized I took for granted as far as like not just body position, but just skill sets and basics, like going down a steep chute, heels back, like
there's no
he went down and he went down and I showed you the video, like his feet were kind of forward and it scared the crap out of me, and I'm just like, oh wait, we need to have a conversation. Like there's things that we've been riding for so long now, not so long, but a few years, to where those things are so secondary and innate in nature, like, so we don't think about them anymore. Yeah. But when we started, we had to, right? Cornering, putting our feet in positions. Like, so I would also recommend people that if you're listening and you are a brand new beginner and you're wondering how to get a new bike, definitely ask questions, maybe talk to somebody that knows how to ride, leave us comments. We can help too. Like there's things that you should know before you just jump into some of these trails you watch on our videos, right?
Well, I was going to say the one thing that you should get with your first bike is a coaching session.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
I mean,
I don't know.
It sounds kind of weird. Like I'm going to get a coaching session to go learn to ride my bike, but mountain biking it's an entirely different world from just like riding a bike.
Yeah.
I know that helped Kelly a lot. And like before we actually got onto the dirt, just some coaching, just the basics, like you said. And there's you could basically get like 3 basics, right?
Yeah.
Like the heels down, the butt back, and then light on the hands. Those 3 things, if you can do those 3 things.
And
anyway,
even like the way to shift and keep that congruent. Is congruent a word? Keep that like synchronized with your flow. Yeah. Like you wouldn't buy a Porsche with a 5-speed and then just ride it off the lot if you never driven a 5-speed before. You know what I mean? You want to know how to drive the car. So there is some value in what you said. If you can find a coach or someone, a guide to like give you a couple hours on the trail and show you some basics that you maybe won't get in that exact moment, but you can take away from and work on, that will dramatically improve. And a lot of those things for me, I didn't have and I had to learn on my own. So I feel like in the beginning, if I knew those things, it would have been progression better.
And these days it's a lot easier to get coaching, like group sessions. A lot of bike shops will have that kind of going on. Check your local bike shops, that sort of thing.
Definitely.
But I think what we're kind of getting at is your first bike to some degree doesn't matter as long as it's not totally clapped out, but get a hardtail. But I think what we're both getting at is you really want something that's going to help you develop your skills, and your skills are really kind of the important thing up front.
Yeah.
And then with that, I think will come knowing what type of riding you want to do.
Yeah.
Right? I started on a hardtail XC bike, and very quickly, without realizing it, started doing enduro type riding. And then realized like that was the type of riding I wanted to do, which immediately had me thinking about the next bike.
Yeah, you're going to be drawn to some aspect of it. And that's why you brought up also a point that we take for granted. There's so many different avenues you could take when you start mountain biking. You can go XC, you can go enduro, you can go downhill bike park, or you can do everything, where we kind of fit in the middle there somehow. I appreciate it all, right? But some people will focus on one thing. Say you don't want to go to the bike park and you just want a bike to just go and pedal and do your local trails, and you don't want to worry about going big and all that stuff. Yeah. There's a bike for you. And if you want to go to the bike parks, there's a bike that maybe can do that and this right in the middle. So when you get that first bike, like you said, that's a good place to figure out where your skill set is, get some basics and what's most fun for you. So instead of just going all in on that $7,000 bike that does this specific thing, save some money and figure out A, if you want to do this, this, or this, and B, if you still want a mountain bike in 2 years.
Right.
The $7,000 bike isn't going to do any favors if you are fleeting in the moment, right? Unless you're just baller and you got it. But
so got your first bike, you've fallen in love with mountain biking, you've kind of figured out what type of riding you like to do. So now, how do we go about buying the next bike? Which to me is really the thing. That's the real question. Like, how do you get that bike? Because you've ridden enough to know what you get off on. You've ridden enough to know your local trails and what you have around you. And maybe you're even starting to think about riding other places and expanding. So you're really looking at buying something that's going to help you be the type of rider you want to be. So there's a term that they use on the Path podcast. They call it your ride fantasy, where a lot of people, when they're buying a bike, they're buying their ride fantasy. Which isn't necessarily, it's not like a joke about like you're not doing it, but you have an image in your brain, right? And after you've had your first bike and you've fallen in love with mountain biking, you start to develop an image about how you want to ride and where you want to ride, what you want to look like.
Yeah. Is it like seeing like the ride fantasy is like, I'm going to get this bike because I want to fly off Dirt Merchant at Whistler and I want to be blasting, bro. Like, is that reality? Or is that what you want the bike to do possibly? Or is it something like that? Or is it more of like, what do you ride every day and get a bike that should be more to your daily?
Well, I think that's the range, right? Yeah. So I can talk about my experience. So when I bought the Intense Recluse, that was my first, that was the next bike. To me, that was like a badass, gnarly bike. And it could do more than I was willing to do. They say like that, the bike is more capable than you. For me, it was like more of a mental thing. Like I wasn't willing to like let go of my brakes through a rock garden or something like that.
Yeah. But the bike was, if you did, the bike was ready.
Yeah. So I wasn't ready for it. It was more bike than I needed, but within a year, like riding, like trying to go fast on Miracle Mile on that thing, or, it's funny. I've seen footage recently of me. Actually, I saw footage of me riding the Chutes waterfall, and I'm looking at it. And I'm like, that's I don't because I was like, it looked small on me. It was like dude, when I first got it, it felt big, and then by the end, by the time I got rid of it, it felt small on me, because my riding I was pushing it to the limit. I was riding it as hard as I could.
That's exactly what happened to me with the Gypsy. I don't mean to cut you off, but me and you are the same on that. Like with Gypsy, I outgrew it and I started having problems with it. But I realized towards the end of my riding with the Gypsy, I got it. I was a different rider than I was when I ended with it, basically. And I feel like that you're saying the same thing, right? Yeah. You got it and you feel like the bike was capable of more than you were doing. But by the end, you outgrew the bike. Yeah. The bike was like, not underperforming, but you wanted a little more
bike. Yeah,
needed more bike, and that's how I felt.
And to talk about the process of and the process for me of getting the intense recluse was relatively similar to the Bronson, where I was able to demo bikes. I demoed a couple of bikes, not many. I demoed the Spider, which I think is the one you had, right? Before the Jeffsy. So I demoed the Spider, and then I demoed the Recluse, and I demoed the Trek Remedy. That's really funny. And I actually, like, that was the first time I started feeling like realizing that a bike wants to do certain things, and the bike likes you to be in certain positions, and finding the one that really kind of matched me.
Yeah. And I feel like that's new. That's a new feeling in the way bikes are made in the last few years. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like the way that they're making bikes and developing the geometry now, there's so much thought into what people are riding now and being specific with the terrain that feeling is more so than if I got back on a bike 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Maybe I'm crazy, but like what you just said, I noticed that like the bike wants to do this. Let it go. Let it do the thing it wants to do.
Yeah, if you get into a certain position, it just really performs. Actually, like totally off. But I remember, like, I bought, like, I used to surf quite a bit, and I had like this like fun board, and then I remember I got a longboard, but it was like a Mickey Munoz, and it was like a performance longboard. And at first I was like, I'm having really a hard time with this longboard because it's not as cruisy as I wanted it to be, but it ended up being like a performance longboard. And once the waves got steep, once they started like pitching, suddenly that thing would fly. Like it was like there was nothing under my feet.
Like a BH bike.
Yeah, exactly. It wanted it to be steep and fast. And that's when it really took off, you know. But coming back to, you know, like, how do you find that bike? I think like you can look at the numbers, you can read the reviews, you can watch Bike Mag's Bible of Bikes, all that kind of stuff. There's nothing like actually trying the bike out. There's nothing like demoing the bike.
Right. I mean, that's something that I wish I did more of, to be honest with you. I know you are really good at that. The last couple of bikes I've had, I've really taken a gamble. Like the Remedy, I researched the crap out of it.
That wasn't much of a gamble.
I mean, yeah, exactly. I knew what I was getting with that one.
Yeah.
Plus, you told me you wrote it and you gave me the green light, so I trust you. But like the Jeffsy was a huge gamble. The Jeffsy was basically literally based on, hey, there's an HQ here. This is where I'm at in my riding. This bike looks great for that. The price point was good. And I just hit that button and I went down there and saved $100 and picked it up. Yeah. I would say, people always ask me why I went away from the Jeffsy. The Jeffsy was perfect for where I was 4 years ago. When I sold it last year, I think I was probably wanting more bike than that for like 6 months, and didn't really realize it because I was so used to it. But as soon as I got on the Remedy, I knew that, and it was hard to explain because you know, you just adjust to what you're with, and then all of a sudden you get shown something new.
And that's what demoing does for you at little to no cost. I mean, if you can go to a demo day, like I know the Path puts on, obviously not now, but not for a while, probably another like several months, but they put on like these big demo fairs where you'll have like, I think the last one I went to, there was like Santa Cruz was there, Intense was there, Trek was there, Giant was there, a couple other people were there. Like it was so many bikes you could try out.
Yeah. And then you guys were shuttling up and down to the luge, right? If I remember right.
Yeah,
that's rad.
And then, you know, a lot of bike shops will also let you you can rent a bike, but they make them like demos because any good bike shop, if they have a decent rental fleet, will put that they'll save that number and consider it credit towards a new bike. I know the Path does that. I know a number of other bike shops do that. So if you end up spending $500 renting bikes, is if you're dedicated to buying a bike from that shop, you don't lose that $500.
Right.
And it's cool because you're developing a relationship with that shop.
That's the point I was hoping you were going to make. Exactly. There's nothing like having a bike shop that you trust and you know the guys and you can relate to. Because for me, that's been huge. I've been going to the Path a lot. And there's nothing better than, you know, if you have a car, anything, a bike, trusting the people to put your bike back together when there's a problem in the most professional way, and to give it back to you to their satisfaction. And when you know their standards are really high and you are letting them work on your bike, that is a good feeling, because it's not just somebody that's just trying to get your bike done with. It's somebody that's like working on your bike as if it's their own. And that feeling, I feel like, I don't know, I don't want to say it's not common, but like once you find that feeling, it's a good place to stick with.
You know how far I drive to get to Tustin to go to that.
You're
shop.
like hour and plus to get there, man.
That's like an hour. It's like 45 minutes to an hour depending on traffic.
Yeah.
But like, I've got local bike shops here, but there was just too many times where I remember one of the bike shops I had like bought I don't remember what I had. I had a piece, I had a part that I needed put on the bike. And I went there and like they literally like took my bike back and they just like threw the part, the $47 part, just like on the workbench. Like no tag, nothing. And I was like, like
doesn't feel right. There's something wrong about that.
And then other times like I would order something and they would be like, oh, it's not in. And then somebody will like, oh, like right before I leave, like, did you check the blah, blah drawer? And they like rummage around and then they pull something out that's been there for 2 months.
Yeah.
That was the part that I needed that they ordered. And I'm just like,
no, I mean, everybody, I feel like everybody knows that feeling. And it's like, oh, am I stuck here or can I do something about it? Right. And like,
the point being, especially when you're buying that next bike, I look at it as you're not just buying a bike. You are ideally you're entering into a relationship with a bike shop.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, unless you're like totally full self-sufficient and you can do all the suspension servicing and all that stuff. I mean, even then, like, well, not me either.
Not me.
Yeah.
I feel, like you, I feel better bringing it to a place and it feels good too, like supporting a shop like that. Shop that does it right. Paying a little extra, whatever it is, for their service, getting somebody that cares about your bike, their integrity's on the line, their reputation's on the line, and when they hand it back to you, that's how they feel. So, that's something that's important to me, especially where we're at right now with our bikes. You know as well as I do, we know our bikes so well. Any little thing that feels different or better, we're like, yes, So, once you've been riding for a while, you understand that.
And going along the lines with the bike shop, if you going on along the lines of demoing, one thing I always want to say when you're demoing a bike, remember that like tuning that bike can also make a difference. So it's almost like you have to like ride the bike knowing like, okay, I might add a little compression, I might do this, I might do that, I make some adjustments, and just kind of get the like overall broad strokes of the bike. But then in relation to the bike shop connection, it's really nice to be able to talk to them, especially if they know their stuff. You'll hear, like as soon as you get into that next bike, if you hear about, it has this type of linkage, it's got that type of thing. What's the Giant Rain like? What's the Scott Ransom like? And you can discuss that, and then you can get on the bike and kind of talk about those differences. And being able to say like, I really liked the blah blah bike, but there was something about it. And to have somebody who's knowledgeable and say, have you tried this other bike? Yeah,
that's true. It's funny, like I get a lot of questions about specific bikes. The Scott Ransom, I just had someone ask me about the Giant Rain, which I rode in Canada. It's tough when I get those questions because I feel like I can't answer them. I haven't ridden a Scott Ransom, right? And I don't know much about, I only know about the bikes that I know about, right? Like the ones that I've ridden. So if I'm going to go on and talk about a random bike I don't know about, you're just going to get a bunch of fluff. So I don't know why I'm bringing up this point, but
I think the thing is like you knowledgeable or not, like you can only convey your experience with that bike, And in the end, it's like a bike is such a personal thing, the one that's going to work for you. Like it's like we were saying earlier, it's going to want to do the stuff that you want to do. And then you personalize it even more. Like my Bronson, like it's this, you can go buy that Bronson off the shelf, but it's not going to have the same width of bars. It's not going to have the same progression in its fork or shock. It's not going to be set up like mine is set up. And I think that makes a big difference.
We always talk about this. I've been bringing this up a lot lately, and it happened with Katie. New bike day. It's so good, right?
It's the worst.
You have such a build up to this amazing bike, and you spent money on it, and it's got everything figured out. And here you go. Everything feels effed up. The bars are too long. The brakes are weird. The fit feels uncomfortable, and you're not used to it. So there's this feeling of like euphoria when you go on the trail for your first time. And then for me, it's always like, wah, wah, like until like a week or two later when everything is figured out and spec'd out to your preference. And then that really is new bike day for me. That is when the bike you synced up.
Well, there's like new bike day, and then there's like my bike day.
Yes. Okay. We should copyright that. My bike day is the one you're looking for.
Yeah. When it's
new bike day is a test drive. My bike day is the day that you have your bike.
When it's new, it doesn't feel like yours yet.
No, and it's not really, right? Because it's technically you own it, but you haven't like worked with it and figured out all the things that you want it to be.
I'll say, okay, so I don't want to like fawn on the path too much. Okay, but when they set up my Bronson, right? They had done a bunch of measurements on my Recluse. So when I got that thing, the seat was in. I haven't had to adjust the seat.
Wow.
Like the nose angle, the forward, backwards, the height. Like they were able to like look at the bottom bracket and like just measure and the angles, and like just based on that, they set everything up like boom.
That's rad. I mean, we're talking about a bike shop that can think that far ahead and get those little things right that you didn't even think about they were going to do. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty rad.
Hey, not to change the subject, I was going to say, you didn't do your Stoke of the Week.
Oh, I didn't. Because I started, I'm doing all that on the raw vlogs now.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Unless I can figure out, like, I was trying to figure out a way to make, keep the guest involved. But I was just thinking I'll just do that on the raw vlogs. Do you have a Stoke? You got a Stoke of the Week?
I have an unstoke of the week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, really going to bring everyone down. But then I'll have a Stoke. But then I'll have a Stoke of the week to bring us back up. The unstoke is that I've had poison ivy for a week and a half.
I think it's poison oak.
Okay, Alan's the knowledgeable guy.
Anyway,
it's turned into grayscale. Poison sumac, and I apologize to anyone that's ever had poison ivy or sumac, and I just pretended it was no big deal because it's ruining my life right now. It's spreading and it's constant itching 24 hours a day. My patience is thin. That's my unstoke of the week. My stoke of the week is something very cliche, and you're going to get annoyed by. You ready?
Yeah.
The internet.
The internet.
Do you know why? Do you know why it's the internet? Here's why. We are stuck in our friggin' houses right now, and we can't leave, right? Mm-hmm. We can stream movies. We basically have home theater systems. I'm here having a conversation with you over the futuristic things that we're doing. Imagine if this was like 1983 right now. Mm-hmm. We'd be staring at a friggin' wall, watching like whoever on the local news and wanting to just kill ourselves because we're so bored. But
that was the 80s anyway.
Yeah, that's true. I take it back. That's true. But imagine if we had the internet.
yeah, it would have been better.
No, I'm just saying. I'm just saying, like, we're all stuck in our houses right now, and at least we have this thing that like makes our lives so much more sociable, even though we're not together. And I know that's so cliche, but I really thought about it this week a lot. Like, I would be going so much crazier if I didn't have interactions like this, or texting, or social, or like movies, and I don't know. There's stuff that like just takes up time.
I know fully agree.
The internet is ridiculous, but you know.
But the internet's like,
it's a blanket statement.
It's the it's the basis, right?
Yeah, but like the other stuff that went with it, like where we are, we're in the future, and it nothing's made me feel more like we're in the future than probably the last months since we're all stuck at home.
I was thinking about so I posted the crappy in that like it destroyed me. The workout that destroyed me on my Instagram story.
Okay.
And it was a story that Jason Carroll, a workout that Jason Carroll had done. And so I saw him do that. I bookmarked it. I was like, I'm gonna go do that. And then when I did it, I like tagged him in it. And I was like, I hate you, Jason Carroll. And then he posted it in his story, but then like we had a kind of connection there. And I'd also mentioned in the last one, I was like, Paul the punter, like, you next. And then we were just kind of messaging back and forth about that workout. And me and Jason Carroll messaged a little bit about that too. And it's like, to me, I'm kind of digging that because that I mean, we're totally off base now, but that's okay. This is a whatever. But that's different than I'm going to send you a message. I'm going to send you an email, a text. Email, what's that?
Yeah.
But to me, that's kind of more similar to being in a social environment where you can just kind of like say something in general and then have like people respond to it. Have this.
You're meeting people also, right? Like that's basically what you're saying. Like you're being able to connect with people that you might not even have been able to do in person, and then maybe that would lead to that. I don't know. Yeah. I totally agree. I just feel like I was picturing myself in the situation with none of those things if it was like 30 years ago. And I'm like, I feel kind of thankful that at least this craziness is happening in the time where we have these things around us where we're living in this times.
Yeah. And the internet can help you find your next bike, you know?
Hey, that's a way to bring it all back. Definitely do research right now while you have some downtime on what bike you want. Yeah, for sure, man.
I mean, I want to tell people like, hey, you don't need to blah, blah. But the truth is I love looking at numbers. I love looking like comparing head tube angles and what does this come with? And like, okay, the price of a Santa Cruz is this much and this is the componentry you get. And if I compare it to a Trek, if I compare it to a blah, 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 like I love doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
Hi, Heather.
Heather, you walking Pip? No, we're not gonna. Oh, they're getting dinner.
Oh, you got to go?
No, they're going to get to Mexico. I'm not invited.
You got
No, I know where she's going. It was all pre-planned. She's not leaving. She doesn't have a bag.
She's out. Screw you.
Yeah.
I thought she packs light.
Yeah, see ya.
Who asked the question? Paul, I hope that answers your question. I don't know how much we actually covered. We didn't really talk about price.
I feel like, I don't know if do we need to cover that? I feel like whatever I would say, wherever your budget's at, I mean, you're going to get something within that. If you're, I don't know, I feel like that we're entering another 40-minute conversation with that.
Yeah. One. Well, tell me, we don't have to give advice. Just tell me like real quick, like what's your, people won't like my approach. People get mad at me about it, but what's your.
So here's my deal. I have a channel.
Your BO.
My deal. This is the way I look at it. I have a channel. My life is right now, like aside from work or whatever I have going on there, is dedicated to mountain biking. I mountain bike. I try to 3-4 times a week. My life used to be consumed with skateboarding, and now it's consumed with mountain biking. So for me, buying a bike that's like $5,000 is healthy and entertaining and keeping me sane and giving me something to do in my life outside of anything else I do. It's my main focus. So for me, spending that much money, it will be worth it. For somebody that's going to spend $5,000 on a bike that does it once a month, no. So I feel like taking that money, and it's such a bigger conversation because it depends on how committed you are and how much you can actually get use out of it. I mean, as soon as this pandemic's over, I'm out on the truck and I'm going to be going on a road trip for 2 weeks with me in the mountain bike. If you're living that lifestyle, maybe you want to spend $5,000 on a bike because you're going to be using the hell out of it and it's going to be taking care of you and it's going to give you everything you need. Not that an aluminum bike can't for like $2,000 less, but I want the best because that's why I'm going to be riding so much and I care so much. So, I mean, it all depends where you're at in life. Like there's life, there's funds, there's all that kind of stuff. What do you think?
I come from a place of run what you brung. I was always the kid who had like the stuff that like was just clapped out and crappy. And it was always my goal to outride people whatever it was, whatever we were doing to outdo people who were on much more expensive stuff. And I kind of like had pride in that. I'm in a different place in my life now. I make pretty decent money, and I've spent a really long time not having money. So now for me to shell out like thousands of dollars on a bike, and keep in mind, Kelly has a bike too. So I don't want to tell you numbers, but like
it's like
there's a
double.
Yeah, it's double. Like take whatever is what you think is an expensive bike and double it, and that's where we're at. And I don't have a problem with that. I actually am the guy. I'm at a point now where I don't look at the right side of a menu at a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I
don't. What do you mean the right? What's the right side?
The where the numbers are.
Oh yeah. Okay.
You know how you have your
Oh yeah.
steak,
Hey,
and on the right
totally
side.
know what you mean.
Yeah.
Dude,
so
me and you both, I think we've lived similar lifestyles up to these points, and we paid our dues. Don't try it this way. So I think I'm in the same place too, where usually I would not be advocating like spend $5,000, everybody has money. No, I'm saying that with you. Like I've been at a point in the last few years where I can do that.
Yeah. To be clear, I have 3 pairs of jeans.
Yeah.
One of them has like
priorities.
A hole in the butt, right?
Yeah.
And so like, and I wear like black t-shirts that most of which come free because I'll do the graphics and they'll just give me one.
Yeah.
So like there's that. So like I don't spend a lot of money on much else, you know. And when I do spend money, I spend a lot of it, and I spend it on very specific things. And the 2 of those things are mountain biking and eating.
Yeah.
So I'm actually saving a lot of money right now.
Me too. I was just telling Heather, I can't believe how low my funds have gone. I usually spend thousands in a month, and I'm like, it's still the same.
Mm-hmm. But
I agree. I was going to say, go ahead.
If you're looking at that next bike, actually going back to your first bike, if you start to love mountain biking, start saving, and then like, let's get into this real quick. Let's see if we can do this in like a minute. Okay. What do you think about financing?
I was thinking that when you just brought that up about, I mean, I don't have much experience, but I heard bike companies like YT, I think, in Canyon are doing 0% financing. And if that is true, then you can afford that bike. I'd have to look that up. I just was told that, but whatever it is, even if it is 1%, the thing is with that, I don't know how long that goes for.
Mm-hmm.
If it's like years, don't do it. Yeah. Like if you could do it in 6 months or a year, that's cool. But you don't want to be paying your bike off when it's time to get a new one. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
I think in and of itself, I don't think there's anything wrong with financing a bike. I mean, as long as you're not like, it's your first bike and you're going to spend $12,000 on a freaking super awesome, whatever e-bike, right? Not that much money, not something like you could get a car, right? Like if you're going to spend like $4,000 or something like that, in and of itself, I don't see anything wrong with that. I think if it's outside of your abilities, if it's outside of like what's comfortable for you and real for you, and you're sacrificing things like, your kids' college tuition or whatever, no. But in and of itself, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I mean, we do that with cars. We do that with things that bring value and quality to our life, and so that's my opinion on that. I know not everybody will agree with that.
No, but I also want to bring it all around too and say, like, with that, make sure you're getting a bike within your ability. You're not overdoing it. Like if you're brand new, I'm not going to suggest you getting the $5,000 bike, right? We've said this before. I just want that to be the major thing. Like, don't try to get the best bike when you're brand new, because you're not going to get that bike out of it. The bike is going to want to do so much more than you're going to do with it. So wait for that.
And you don't even know what the best bike is at that point anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's going to be like, what's the best bike for what you're doing?
For you. And you don't know yet. Get that first bike as like hey, let's figure this out. Yeah. And then we'll, figure it out.
Yeah. Sweet, man. I think this was pretty good. I think we gave some valuable content to our listeners.
We did it. We did the stuff. There's some stuff in there.
Yeah. Maybe you can find it. It'll take a minute, but I'll put some. Yeah. Heck yeah. So
Let's wind this thing up. Okay, I'll see you later. Is that how you do it?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
So like hopefully you dug this. If you did, hit that like button. Check to see if you're subscribed. If you're not, hit that subscribe button. You'll be supporting the channel and I'll show up in your feed. Let's see if we can get this thing up to 1,000 subscribers. We're like a quarter of the way there or something. Anyway, but let's do that. Do that stuff. To support your local bike shops. Stay safe out there. And be cool. I just saw somebody got hurt recently. I won't name any names, but they got hurt going kind of hard. I'm kind of worried about them. Hopefully they don't have to go to the hospital. But yeah, so stay safe out there. Be smart. Tony, thank you so much for coming on. I know we've taken up like over an hour of your time.
I'm so busy right now.
So busy on the social medias.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to be here, man. Alan, I love you.
Love you too, bro. Oh, we're gonna get that now. We got all the bromance freaking comments. Yeah. Here we go.
Bring it on.
Yeah. Dude, thank you so much. Thanks everybody for coming and watching this and listening. And leave your comments below. See if I'm sure we missed stuff. I'd love to hear how you go about buying your bikes. What was your first bike like? That'd be cool to hear about. And then if you have more questions, either for just me or for Tony, because I'm sure Tony's going to be back on at some point.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, cool. Thank you so much. We said thank you a bunch of times. Let's see if we can do the high five. Oh, that was good. All right, cool.
We got it.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See you next time.
You.